Sign up to The Economist for in-depth curated expert analysis of world events and topics ranging from business and culture to science and technology. You'll get the weekly digital edition, online-only articles, curated newsletters on politics, the markets, science, culture and China, and full access to The Economist Podcast Plus. The Economist is independent journalism for independent thinking. Go to economist.com and get your first month free.
This program contains subject matter and language that may be disturbing to some viewers. Your discretion is advised.
Savaged, unfiltered. Your host, Michael Gardner.
Sometimes, when you get upset, that's something that affects you on your life, 21 years later since 9/11, it's going to affect your demeanor as character. But before we open up the show, guys, with today's topics here, Soslan Temanson has a couple statements he would like to address to the listeners, both my listeners and as well as his listeners from his show. Remember, God loves you. And I'll meet you at the Finish Line podcast. So go ahead, Sas. The floor is yours, sir.
That sounds good. Michael, I just want to, for your listeners and my listeners and for you, I want to say that I'm not going to apologize for my statements on your podcast yesterday. I know people called me a fraud because I used some inappropriate language. But when you are in a heated, when you're passionate about something, you're going to express it. And especially when people try to undermine this nation and undermine what your hard work is doing, you want to get passionate and you're excited about it. It doesn't give the right to attack my personal character as well as my show for the good works that we're doing and for the outreach that we're doing. There's no need for demonizing my podcast and demonizing what the individual I am, and also just tearing each other down. And the only reason why viewers and my listeners and vice versa is because I'm getting that from both sides, from the Democratic side and from the Republican side. And there's nothing more offensive when the Republicans state that you are not a true patriot and that you are a phony fraud patriot. To me, that's an insult, and I think that this needs to be addressed. And I think it was kind of a hurtful statement that I got from a couple of the Republican leaders, and I just think it's uncalled for. What is your thoughts on it, Michael?
Well, first and foremost, Sas, before we, get into my statement and my response to that, I want to, kind of just leave it brief, because what I'm about to say kind of ties into a lot of what we're going to be talking about on the show today. First and foremost, Sas, I'm quite surprised by some of the responses that, obviously you're getting it on both sides, the left and the right. But the surprise that I'm surprised about is that you're getting this on the right. Right, you're getting it from Republican leaders and everything else. Why is that, Sas? I need to ask that question.
So the reason why I'm getting that from the Republican side is, so I should clarify, is because I'm getting it from the rhinos. I should clarify, not the Republican side. I should clarify because the reason why is because my tribute to the Queen, as well as my tribute to 9/11, and stating that, well, if you truly love this country, you wouldn't be glorifying a monarch that supported one world government, and that's a true patriot wouldn't be doing that. But another thing is that this continues from the Republican side of discrediting my hard work, because what I'm doing in Wisconsin and as well as in the Midwest of exposing the Republican Party, they really are. And that's continuation of, that explains the food poisoning I had on Thursday night or on Friday night. That explains the food poisoning I had. and how some leaders were very upset about me. And so then I had food poisoning that following night, and I had to get my stomach pumped in the ER. And so it just, not only are they going after my credibility, but they're, attacking me physically through.
Sauce, I mean, this goes back to what you and I were saying. We were closing it out. Why are we looking at the country with a disconnect? Why have we become a country of disconnect? And this ties into literally what Sauce and I were talking about just yesterday on the show, the disconnect. Not only do you see it on the left, but you're seeing it on the right. Both sides are to be blamed for this. The disconnect, not only to the American people, but from the American people, and vice versa. It's really bad when you become a nation where you have so much of that, so much dishonesty, so much hatred, so much rhetoric, criticism. It really is. You really want to just kind of scratch your head, try to hopefully not to cry it out, but to question it. How can we literally go around? It makes it difficult, Sauce, when you actually have leadership that's supposed to represent you on a unbiased level, right?
Yeah,
they're supposed to. It makes it 10 times harder. And I just want to leave it at that, because what we're about to talk about, guys, is very similar on everything that we're seeing. Sauce is getting attacked on his platform, on his social media. People that he's supposed to be representing, they're looking at him with disgrace and dishonor. That's terrible.
Savage, unfiltered.
Reenact a little bit from former President Trump. And he used these words. Folks, we need to drain the swamp. Now, fast forward 4 years later, 2022. I would never imagine the swamp that he was referring to, Sauce, was this big and this deep.
Yeah.
And I'm going to get into that right now. What we're about to do show here, folks. I want to plug in. Okay. If anybody recognized the demeanor and the wording this last week, when he made that trip up to the White House, the first trip in just about almost 5 years. Now, I need to retract that. He did make a trip earlier this spring, but that was to basically rally around Joe Biden's healthcare laws that he was trying to bring back in, almost like an Obama 2.0. He made a visit to the White House, but he didn't initially go into the White House. He basically said his speech right there on the lawn, right near the Rose Garden. But he made this speech just this past week, and some of the demeanor coming out of his voice will not only shock you, but probably shock the rest of the country.
My successor would embrace my vision or continue my policies. I did hope, for the sake of our country, that Donald Trump might show some interest in taking the job seriously, that he might come to feel the weight of the office and discover some reverence for the democracy that had been placed in his care. But he never did. For close to 4 years now, he has shown no interest in putting in the work, no interest in finding common ground, no interest in using the awesome power of his office to help anyone but himself and his friends. No interest in treating the presidency as anything but one more reality show that he can use to get the attention he craves. Donald Trump hasn't grown into the job because he can't. And the consequences of that failure are severe. 170,000 Americans dead. Millions of jobs gone, while those at the top take in more than ever. Our worst impulses unleashed, our proud reputation around the world badly diminished, and our democratic institutions threatened like never before. Tonight, I'm asking you to believe in Joe and Kamala's ability to lead this country out of these dark times.
The video I showed, okay, it showed a lot, Sauce. It showed division, it showed hatred, and it showed extreme amounts of criticism and rhetoric. Did you watch that entire speech that he had last week, Sauce, at the White House?
Yes, and I definitely can tell you that was not a speech of unifying the country together. No. And President Barack Obama is very famous for manufacturing racism. We can see that during his presidency with Ferguson riots, with a lot of hate crime on, with racist crimes, and he manufactured racism and purposely divided this country. And that's what President Trump ran on as well, which is that he wanted to unify this country from all walks of life and from all colors of life. And he did a great job about that, because he gave the lowest Black unemployment, President Trump did, for the African American community than any other president. He also had the lowest amount of welfare recipients of African Americans, Mexicans, Asians than any other president has. And not only that, but he stuck the promise of stating, you know what, I am the president's people because I care about this country. I love this country and I want what's best for you. So what happened was he made sure that the African American community, the Asian community, the minority community were taken care of. And always what President, Obama, he is meant to undermine this country. He's a Muslim. He hates his country. He despises his country. So of course you're going to have division. And I definitely can tell you, Obama and Biden have done a fantastic job of dividing this country to a point where we have at each other's throats. And that's exactly, this administration has done a fantastic job. And the biggest lie that has ever came out of Joe Biden's mouth is at his inauguration speech, when he's stating that, you know what, it doesn't matter if you voted for me or didn't vote for me, we're all going to come together. I call it complete bullshit on that.
Yeah, I agree with you, Sauce. And, guys, I'm not one to, constantly plug in video after video or sound clip after sound clip on my show. But this show, I'm gonna need to do that, explaining here on the show today, where Sauce went into that very briefly of the disconnect with the American people of we're kind of experiencing today. And I think that's where some of the division's coming from. This deep state, folks, is very, very, very large, and it goes into great detail. Check this clip out from Sauce, guys. Plug it in
one side and the other. Okay, I'm sorry. If you don't really like this country, just get the fuck out of this country. Because why don't you bring in pro-patriotic people that love this country? Like, for instance, I do. I bleed red, white, and blue. Because I have not only served this country, but I've been fighting for our freedoms, and it's getting undermined by the satanic.
Now, the clip that I plugged in was actually a clip 3/4 of the episode just yesterday. If you had paid attention to that, okay. There was another clip, guys. I want to plug in just briefly here, and the reason why I'm plugging these clips in is to Sauce and I are saying here on the show, because I think there's a lot of confusion from the both sides of the aisle, and maybe hopefully, Sauce, this will actually benefit the so-called rhinos, and they'll understand that we're not showing hatred. We're not showing, radicalization of conversation or anything like that. I think it's important to air this, guys. Check this out. This is from Jimmy the Rant, literally referencing the same thing earlier in yesterday's episode during that special episode of 9/11 that we did. Earlier in the episode, Jimmy the Rant referencing some of the disconnect that we're seeing today that George W. Bush had referenced in early 2000, during around 2001, 2002.
Well,
check this clip out, guys.
Something that I believe was partially set up by certain elite families in the country involved in politics and money. So I feel a tremendous type of way towards this day, and I do believe that, and we want to keep their memory alive, and we definitely want to. We want the truth. I'm a 9/11 truther. I've been that way since 2001.
Now, you understand why I'm plugging these clips in, okay? A lot of reference, guys.
The establishment protected itself, but not the citizens of our country. Their victories have not been your victories. Their triumphs have not been your triumphs. That all changes starting right here and right now. From this day forward, a new vision will govern our land. It's going to be only America first, by American and hire American. No challenge can match the heart and fight and spirit of America. We will not fail. Our country will thrive and prosper again. We will reinforce old alliances and form new ones, and unite the civilized world against radical Islamic terrorism, which we will eradicate completely from the face of the earth. We will be protected by the great men and women of our military and law enforcement. We will bring back our jobs. We will bring back our borders. We will bring back our wealth. And we will bring back our dreams. We will face challenges. We will confront hardships. But we will get the job done. Together, we will determine the course of America and the world for many, many years to come. This moment is your moment. It belongs to you.
We're referencing to just with those, little 40, 50-second clips. I highly suggest you go back to yesterday's episode, and it'll be explained to you in full detail. But back to the show, Sas, the episode, or excuse me, it is an episode because Obama's using these episodes when he speaks. In that speech that he said last week, he's warning of malevolence aimed at democracy in a Democratic fundraiser speech. That's what it was about. MAGA Republicans are the main threat.
Yeah. See, that's another thing I don't understand. Why, if you're really, here's the thing that I don't really understand. If you're all about labels, I mean, they're so good at throwing labels. I thought the Democratic Party is a party of no labels. You can be whatever you want. We can be all happy-go-lucky. But the moment that you think differently from them, the moment that you start realizing and say, wow, what is really going on in America? You're slapped with the label and then you're demonized. Perfect example, Tulsi Gabbard, who is a fantastic woman. She is demonized from her own party because she thinks differently. And she's like, no, you can't label everyone as being all bad and as like, you can't label a whole group of people as domestic terrorists and as like all awful and horrific people, because that's what we're taught. Is if you label one person, of course they're going to get upset, and then you're not going to work with the other side. If you want to get anything done, you gotta work with people on both sides. You gotta treat them properly. You can't slap them with the label and then treat them like that label, and you can't like blow them off and cancel them right away if they think differently from them. And that's why it's
funny you mentioned. Yeah, I'm sorry, Sas. It's funny you mentioned Tulsi Gabbard. What is Tulsi Gabbard? Who is she, folks? Sas? She's a Democrat, exactly, Sas.
That got excommunicated from her own party because she looks at both sides. She hears both sides. She does her research. She does her homework. And she and I have contacted her team, and we're working perfectly. And she contacted you. She was on your podcast. And see, that's a true Democrat. That's a Democrat that wants to work with both sides. She didn't demonize you or I, or she doesn't demonize people. She says we think we're different on multiple issues, but at the end of the day, we can agree to disagree, and we still can go out for ice cream. Where the hell did that kind of mentality go?
In La La Land, I think It is. It's lost. During his speech last week. Okay, guys, and I want to stick on this for a little bit here because it's going to really show you just what this deep state is all about. And Barack Obama, folks, is becoming the mastermind within the deep state. I really think he's running the show, and I've said that for a long time. Exactly. Former President Obama said this, and he used the remarks, and he used these words, basically armed at attacking our sovereignty. And he uses these little words. That words can go a long way, folks. What do you mean? What does he mean by that, Sas?
Well, you look at what happened. You look at what happened today. You look outside your front door. Look at all the labels that you have. Look at all over 20 plus genders you have. And look at what he's implemented. Look what Obama's implemented through the Obama Cares Act, with the whole transgender stuff. That is now the most impossible thing to get out of the federal government is because of what Obama has done and with all the labeling that he's done while he was president. And words can impact somebody's career. Words can impact somebody's job. Words can impact somebody's way of life. And the way that, if you can, for instance, build somebody up, then you got to tear them down. And how you tear them down is you go after their character and you go after what they believe. For instance, you look at how he demonized Christians during his presidency and how he gave more leniency towards Muslims. And now you have Muslims attacking. You have Muslims now attacking people in Israel, in the Twin Towers, for instance, and all these horrific attacks because of words. Because they're thinking, okay, you know what? We have the upright. Obama gave us a great satisfaction that we're better than they are because he said it. And so those words that cause hatred. It's those words that it's the words that fuel a person's minds. For instance, if I were to say to you, Michael, that you're holier than thou, at the end of this podcast, you're going to say, you know what? I am holier than thou because somebody said it to me. So I'm going to live that way. I'm going to live that kind of a lifestyle. So what's going to happen? You're going to become prideful. You're going to become arrogant. You're going to become holier than thou, somewhat. But anyway, you're really not. Now, I'm using you as an example because the funny part is the sad part is I used to live that kind of lifestyle. Where back in high school, I used to be holier than thou. And because people I hung in the wrong crowd and I hung out with people that agreed with me and said, well, you know what, Soslan, you are better than everybody else. So what happened is I changed my demeanor. I changed the way I lived. I changed the words I used. So before I found Christ, I lived a very miserable life. And now this is now I surrounded myself with good people that hold me accountable, good people that now to my fire and say, you know what, you did something wrong, ask for repentance, or you did something wrong, keep up the good fight. Anyway, people are going to tear you down with words. You're doing a great job. So it keeps the willingness to fight. See, it's all the people you surround yourself with as well that give you those words of encouragement, words of affirmation. And that's what it really comes down to, is the people that you surround yourself with. If you're going to surround yourself with people that have full hatred, like Islam, and you ally yourself with people that hate this nation with a passion, then you're going to speak words of rhetoric. You're going to speak words of fueling the division. That's what Biden has done, and that's what the Democratic Party has done. They've gone to a party that now aligns with themselves with ISIS, Islam, and Russia and Chinese words and rhetorics, and they're using it against their own nation that they supposedly love and reside in.
Oh, sure.
Sorry
and
about
no, you're fine, Sas. I get it. But it's, I think some of what you're referencing, sadly, is basically like an older America, and sadly it is, folks. What Sas just referenced on the show, I'd love to have that type of America back. I think all of us would love to have that type of America back. But I mean, it's going to take a while to get that form of that country back in order, because we've become so radicalized, so divided. It's It's like literally now or never. But I want to get into something here, which you saw two things here. An article that Fox News just put out earlier this week, that Obama is now planning to campaign for a variety of candidates, basically ahead of the November elections. And that includes those in the down ballot races, and such as, the current Secretary Nancy Pelosi. So, oh boy, Obama putting a big influence on the November elections.
See, and that's what you call desperation. That's what you call a party that is desperate because Obama is supposedly the most popular president and that he's the most well-spoken president. No, that's what you call desperate. And it's interesting because part of that news article, that Fox News article, they state that Obama's going to make a presence at UW-Madison and that he's going to speak he's going to endorse Governor Tony Evers for governor. And
I've seen that.
Yeah, and see, and the funny part is, I wrote an op-ed. I wrote an article, letter to the editor, that's hopefully going to be submitted this week into my paper. News article, the Fox News article, they state that Obama's going to make a presence at UW-Madison, and that he's going to speak he's going to endorse Governor Tony Evers for governor. And
I've seen that.
Yeah, and see, and the funny part is, I wrote an op-ed. I wrote an article, letter to the editor, that's hopefully going to be submitted this week into the county paper and to other newspapers, talking about how we should not be fooled when when we have people stating that, well, we support all these things anyway. They really don't. Actually, the funny part is, I actually have the letter if you wouldn't mind. So when I hear we have to save democracy, now I'm going to say this, and hopefully your listeners my listeners are paying attention to this letter, because this is huge. Now you can put in your governor, you can put in your whatever the opponent that you're running against, or you can put in whatever name that you want to put in. But this is for, if you're in Wisconsin, hear this, and also if you're in any Democratic state. So when I hear we have to save this country for democracy, I can only imagine what people in suppressed countries without freedom are thinking. Our political leaders in Wisconsin are going after your tax dollars, your dreams, destroying your kids' education, and hindering the ability to live the American dream to save our democracy. As I look around, read ads in the paper, and speak to people who love this country, I see that the new Democratic Party is more worried about having a totalitarianism style of government, so it's a one-world government or dictatorship. So totalitarianism government, known as dictatorship, means a style of government in which the people have virtually no authority and the state yields absolute control, for instance, dictatorship and fascism. We can see Venezuela as an example of totalitarianism, which was one of the wealthiest countries in the world and now is a third world country because of democracy. Do not be fooled when Governor Evers, or your governor, Evers, says that he is fighting for democracy. As I see ads in the paper stating Governor Evers is investing in our kids' education, I wonder what the schools have to teach to get funding. For instance, to continue the lunch program funding, the state schools have to introduce CRT and grooming curriculum. Do not be fooled when Governor Evers says he wants to invest in our kids' education. We see Governor Evers and Mandela Barnes having commercials in Market County or your county that you reside in, talking about how they love Wisconsin and will better Wisconsin if you like them. When I hear those commercials, I look back to when we had lockdowns because of COVID and how we were restricted from going out and about. Not only did Governor Evers hurt the businesses in Market County or the county you reside in, but he was more worried about releasing violent criminals so they wouldn't contract COVID. Furthermore, they have the guts to say they stand behind law enforcement while they push to defund the police. And take donations from organizations that want to defund the police. Do not be fooled when Governor Evers states that he supports law enforcement. Make sure to vote in November because our constitutional republic depends on it. Sincerely, Soslan Temanson. So you can put in the governor, whatever person that you, whatever the Democratic candidate is, you can put your name in. But that's just an overall letter that I highly suggest people to read. What are your thoughts on it?
That's some powerful stuff, Sauce. I mean, hopefully it gets some attention, and the state of Wisconsin and your district, your county, and little more. Hopefully it gets the attention to the American people. Because what we're seeing right now, like I said, folks, there are words to explain to it. I know I'm an unfiltered show, but the shit that we are seeing, literally, if we do not stand up and keep on fighting, literally, the shit's about to hit the fan, and we're just about there. Sas, well said. I have to say, literally well said.
And Michael, the thing I told my parents is I never thought in my lifetime that I would be fighting for It's sad because I told my parents I was at a rally, and I spoke at a rally of 300 people, and it was on Friday night. And I told my parents, I said, and also the crowd, I said, in my lifetime, I would never think I'd be fighting, not only escaping communism, and escaping and coming to freedom, but also fighting for freedom again. But this time around, I don't think I would be. But this time around, how people within the country are going after your life, and it's just like Russia all over. And that's why this depends on it.
Yeah, let me ask you something, Sas. Like, what was your parents' response to that, if you don't mind me asking? Are they proud of what you're fighting for? Are they proud of the movement that you're creating for the country?
So, number one, my parents are a little bit worried about my safety because of recent posts and because of recent comments and how people are more becoming unhinged because I live in a Democratic city and my dad's a pastor. And so we beefed up our security and we beefed up more of our surveillance of, we're now more on guard because of my movement that we're starting. And you can see that more and more people are unhinged in Madison and how they're more after after they come after my life now. For instance, I had to replace a review mirror because somebody sideswiped to my vehicle in Madison the other day. Yeah.
God. But I mean, obviously, your parents, your family, they tune into the show here on Savage Unfiltered. And they understand that, myself, Michael, I can get a little, heated myself. So
I love this Rakuten app. Look at that. I open the app, find the store that I want to use, start buying, and gets me tons of cash back. I just got paid to shop.
My favorite thing about Rakuten is just getting money back in the mail.
I mean, who wouldn't want cash back? Sign up today, get cash back.
Heated myself. So I'm sure what their, I can imagine their response for that, like, oh, you got to be careful, Sauce, so I understand, they're looking out for your safety and everything. But folks,
we shouldn't live in that kind of environment, though. We shouldn't live in an environment where we shouldn't live in an environment where you expect to get brand new car parts for your vehicle, like where you're sitting at a red light and somebody sideswipes your vehicle and then gets mad and gets out and then starts yelling at your face. We shouldn't live in that kind of environment. We should live in an environment where, okay, you know what? We disagree. Fantastic. But don't cause bodily harm. Don't have food poisoning because you disagree with somebody. And for instance, don't go at a Republican meeting, so-called, and call out. And here's what my representative did. Okay, and this was very evident within the meeting. And this shows.
Yeah, I got to get to two more topics, but
it shows how deep awful the deep state really is. How this is entrenched even within the Republican Party. When your own representatives is using fighting words of stating, you know what, buddy. I'm so too bad. You got to try again and say, well, I'm glad that she's like, and then she covers up all of her garbage. And then she says, well, it might've been true where they've accepted $305 million, where Wisconsin accepted $305 million from Congress to sway the election to vote Democratic this time around. And she's like, well, buddy, maybe try again. And a lot of people state that was fighting words from my representative, and that is a red flags right there.
Words. Did you see the latest coming out of the other day? Now, Mitt Romney, right? He's a former rival of Obama, and this Republican that literally is kind of entwining himself into the Biden-Obama circle, right? Where he's now urging Biden to take down Trump at all costs Trump to prevent him from running in either 2022 or 2024. Now,
that's psychotic.
It is. And it goes back to Sauce's words here and earlier in the show, folks, where Sauce used they're desperate, Sauce.
Yeah. Well, what happens?
You know,
what happens if we're seeing this? What happens if Mitt Romney is saying, "Hey, you got to take him down, so I can take a bid I can run with Liz Cheney, and I can be the front runner tickets."
That could be a possibility.
That's why they're so worried about it. That's why they're so desperate, because what happens if Mitt Romney is?
Well, did you hear? Yeah, did you hear what Romney was calling Trump? He's calling him a liar, a phony, and a fraud. This is coming from his own Republican Party. Like, oh boy, I tell you.
Yeah. And this is all.
Then fast forward. Go ahead, Sauce.
And you know what? It's ironic because this is the same Mitt Romney that has a son that is in shady business deals along with Hunter Biden. So you're telling me that I really, what I really think about Mitt Romney and Liz Cheney? I really think that they are Democrats, but they slap themselves as Republicans so they can say, well, I'm a Christian. I believe in all these things. And I think for the longest time, they could play that card for so long. And I think that people have exposed for who they really are. And now as Americans, we're seeing what they really are, which is a bunch of frauds, and that they're so desperate and they're not going to have a chance in 2024. That's
the same thing that George W. Bush did. The same thing. They've run as a Republican, or they run as a Democrat when they're really vice versa. One's not really a Democrat, like you mentioned the word or mentioned the name. Excuse me, Tulsi Gabbard. She's more Republican than Democrat. They run as that Sauce to get the votes because it shows a threshold during the elections.
Yeah. Well, perfect example. We look at. Well, a perfect example. We look at Wisconsin and Milwaukee. We had the Sheriff Clark. Sheriff Clark ran as a Democrat in Milwaukee. But anyway, Sheriff Clark has now become a Republican. And he's like, I had to run as a Democrat in order to get votes, in order to make a movement. I had to run as a Democrat. That is really sad when somebody has to say that, because when you have to say that, your integrity, you are compromising not only your integrity, but you're saying that, I'll do it at all costs to win an office. That's pretty sad.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about the deep state today, guys. Just remember back in 2017 at a conference, this was like around mid-July, right around 2000. It was in 2017, but it was around mid-July. Obama's former CIA director, John Brennan, remarked the words obligation to refuse to carry out, right? They use those words, obligation to refuse to carry out. They'll do anything, folks, to try to squash a movement such as the MAGA Republicans, the MAGA movement, or just about anything that represents the true background and panel of America. They use that, Sauce. The CIA director, John Brennan, used that term. Orders from President Trump. He said that we need to fight the deep state and I need to drain the swamp. Once they heard that, Obama was like, nope, not going to happen. I remember it like it was yesterday. That comment, Rush Limbaugh, and Rush Limbaugh literally called Obama out on his show that during that time and literally said that Obama is showing dangerous rhetoric for America.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
And I couldn't agree more. And that, well, another thing that you also have to look at is, I think the reason why they're being showing so actually very, very super dangerous rhetoric is because of the Agenda 2030, which is talking about the one world government and talking about the one world and trying to get people to comply with the one world federal government, and also trying to comply. And that's why we gave our health constitutional rights to the WHO, which is the World Health Organization. And I think that it was a 10-year plan, and it got disrupted when President Trump ran and won. And so now they're in hyperdrive, or on speed control, to make sure that they reach that agenda. And so they're going to do everything and anything to get people out of their way and to maybe eliminate them. And we're seeing that, with over dozens of FBI raids going on Trump supporters, and with Marjorie Taylor Greene that the media refuses to cover, how her office has been raided.
Terrible the way they're attacking her. I mean, she's, poor, Marjorie Taylor Greene of Georgia. My heart goes out to you. Continue doing what you're doing. And she was just, speaking of her, she was just actually up at the Capitol a couple days ago, fighting for just everything. She's fighting for, what the hell was she fighting? God. She was fighting for basically voter integrity. She just put a law into the state of Georgia, not only in her district, but she's also trying to pass it along to the congressional leaders of the state of Georgia, where she is going to say that, we are going to end the basically what she labeled it, transgender bathrooms. She doesn't want it. Some restaurants actually have those type of bathrooms. They're co-ed bathrooms, Sas. I know Starbucks has them now. A few other coffee shops and restaurants.
McDonald's.
They have, McDonald's. I've seen a couple here at McDonald's. Not in my area, but in certain areas of Florida. Yeah, disgusting.
It's absolutely repulsive. And you explain why the rape cases are going astronomical. You explain why pregnancies are super high. It's because you have insecure men that think that they're women and that all they want to do is that they just want to rape kids. Well, rape women and say, no, I'm a female, so let me go to the female's locker room, or let me go to the female's locker room or female's bathroom because I'm very insecure about myself. And then anyway, that they are like raping the women and just forcing them to be quiet. And you see that in Wisconsin. You see the pregnancy rates going really high, and all because of men thinking that they're women and they're insecure about themselves. So they go to women's locker rooms in high schools and so on, and they take advantage, and they literally brainwash the women and psychologically damage the women. And it's really heartbreaking. It's because, we have poor leadership in not only in Wisconsin, but at the federal level. And now it's saying that it's okay. It's okay to do that because you know what? You're a male and it's right to do so. No. Let's get some accountability. Let's get some transparency going. That's why. That's just why we have to really get out and save this save this constitutional republic.
Yeah, and there's something here. A couple. Hopefully, Sas, if I can get like another maybe 5 or 6 minutes of your time, sir, I appreciate it. I want to get these 2 bits.
This is a great episode.
Yeah, it is. It's going to be a really good episode, but there was something here I wanted to bring up. I found quite interesting, where we're talking about Obama. We're talking about the deep state last week, guys. If you paid attention, that he wants the Republicans to basically as a bipartisan type of scenario, where he wants to use technology companies such as Facebook, Instagram, all our big tech companies, right? He wants to use big tech to be part of our way of life. What do I mean by that? He wants big tech to basically censor out, wants social media to basically investigate any type of behavior coming from users. He wants big tech to basically be used as a bubble. And this is coming from the former president, Sas. If that's not invasion of privacy, I don't know what is.
And you know what they're going to use it under, right? They're going to use it under the Patriot Act. They're going to expand on the Patriot Act to now saying that. So maybe what happens if Obama worked with George W. Bush to get invoking that Patriot Act and some on it? What happens?
Hell, that can go all the way back to 2001. You know what I mean?
So then that brings up speculations to what happens if the 9/11. Now, I don't know if this is true, but what happens if United States, the deep state, paid out like Osama bin Laden to carry out the horrific plan, and that's why we're so involved in the Middle East.
Yeah.
something to think about.
I don't know, Sauce.
That's scary to think about.
Yeah, that would. You're damn right. And what we were just talking about, Sauce. There's an article that was coming out here, and I'm gonna leave it like this, and then I got to make a huge announcement, guys. Another huge announcement. This is coming out of Atlanta, Georgia, my former city that I used to live in before I moved to Florida. Now, stop. Get this. I'll leave it like this, and then I got to make a huge announcement, guys. Another huge announcement. This is coming out of Atlanta, Georgia, my former city that I used to live in before I moved to Florida. Now, Stas, get this. All linked to the deep state. This is how sick and demented these people are. This is the Atlanta DA. That's what the headline says. I'm reading this right here on the New York Times, actually, believe it or not. That the Atlanta DA is taking on crime and a president, Donald J. Trump. Now, Fannie T. Willis, which is a big, political figure in Atlanta, strut up to the podium in a red dress late last month in downtown Atlanta. Okay? And basically, she said these words: if you thought Fulton was a good county to bring your crime to bring your violence to, you were wrong, she said, facing a blank of news cameras, going to suffer consequences. Now, I'm not going to read for word because it's a huge article. It's right on the New York Times, guys, on the front page of the New York Times, okay, where she goes into saying that these new gang members, Sas, get this, these new gang members known as Drug Rich, members have just been indicted in a sprawling racketeer case, okay? Have been talking about another crew that she's viewing as a possible criminal enterprise. Former president himself, Donald J. Trump. She's now claiming that Donald J. Trump used this gang known as Drug Rich or some type of similar gang in the city of Atlanta, Georgia, to try to overturn 2020 election loss in Georgia. Isn't that sick, Sauce? This is the deep state for you.
That's demonic. That is.
It's disgusting.
Well, and why? Well, here's the whole thing. Why are they still focused on the 2020 election? If you think that you've won, why are you still focused on it? I mean, what happens if President Trump really did win Georgia? Then if he did win, why don't you just get over it and worry about like destroying your city by bringing illegal immigrants to your city? Why don't you worry about that and start crying about it? Why worry about, crying about the 2020 election? I mean, if you think about it, if I supposedly won, okay, if I supposedly won an election, why would I dwell on it for 2 years after I won the election? Or why would I have my city dwell on it? That tells you either I lost and then I'm covering it up, which they did, or I'm trying to get sympathy and I'm just trying to get donors, and that I'm running a very poorly managed country or county or city. So I'm just going to look back on my predecessor, and that comes down to it. So that's the only 2 points I have to bring up. And another thing is, why do we keep on bringing up?
Or Sash, you're just a really, really poor sporter.
Yeah. Well, and to leave on this thought, the other thing is that when we have this dangerous kind of rhetoric coming out of our politicians from local levels to, for instance, you look at what's happening in Rock County right now. A lot of people are not overlooking on this. They're canceling all gun shows in Rock County because the gun owners are now supposedly MAGA Republicans, and that if you have a gun show in Rock County, you will be cited $10,000 and you will be faced at least 30 days in jail. So the Rock County has voted that and is now passed that. So
can you elaborate to the listeners where Rock County is?
So Rock County is in Beloit. It's in Beloit, Wisconsin, so it lies right below Madison. So, so of course it's right below Madison. So that's in cesspool. And the scary part about that is a lot of people are overlooking that. And why aren't we focused on the true crime, the trafficking, human trafficking, the fentanyl crisis? Why are we not focusing on that? You know why? Because in order to get compliance from the deep state, you have to attack one side of the country in order to deteriorate them, in order to imprison them, in order to get like
look at the cities, Sox. Look at the cities, man. They're becoming freaking cesspools of violence.
Literally.
Every inner city. It's terrible. Please, Ron DeSantis, continue doing what you're doing. You're keeping this state alive. It's literally on freaking life support. It really is. My applause go to the great super governor of the state. But Miami, Florida, Jacksonville, Florida, crime rate right now, a 5.9. They're below 10%. That's great, but they're still high. Another one, I'm not going to label all of them because there was like about 6, but the third right now, these are the third highest right now, folks, in the state of Florida. The third right now, Tampa, Florida. Tampa, Florida. Beautiful. I was just there not too long ago with Mackenzie. We went there. We had a little mini vacation. It was beautiful. The sand over there is like powder. I mean, you really don't need flip-flops to walk on the sand. It's that soft. But, it's these beautiful cities filled with tourists constantly coming into the state. We have the most elegant, beautiful type of tourists that come into the state. Orlando, Disneyland, Disney World, Universal Studios, Tampa. They go to the beaches. They're known for world-class beaches. There's people that come from all over the world to come to some of these world-class beaches, Sauce. But they're run by these maniacs of all these cities in Florida are all Democratic cities, and they're becoming cesspools of violence. It's terrible. Terrible.
And it's called hypocrisy cities and hypocrisy leaders at its finest. If you're worried about, like, for instance, it's interesting how all of them are focused on saying that, well, we support the blue, we back the blue, we want to protect our communities. Why aren't you protecting the communities now? Why are we going to elect you? Do you think that we're going to elect you for instance, if I were a young family, do I think I would elect an individual that screamed to defund the police and, like I said in my letter to article, defund the police and push all this like violent and not absolutely do no bail and stuff? Do you think I would re-elect you as my next governor or next senator? And I say hell no to that, because you haven't done anything to protect my community.
I've got an idea for a Heinz ketchup commercial. I was at this super posh restaurant. Super posh. The type of place that has chandeliers and paintings on the wall and way too many forks. I think classical music was playing, but maybe it was jazz. No, definitely classical. The hostess walks up to me and she said, "Mr. Sheeran, is this your first time dining with us?" And I say, "Yep." The waiter comes over, he's telling me about the specials. Super fancy vegetables, fancy sauces. I said, "Sounds fancy." So, fast forward and the food comes. The waiter goes on to tell me, "We are proud to present this farm-to-table blah blah blah, posh and fancy blah blah blah, with a side of blah blah blah." The food looked good. I just thought there was something missing. So I reach into my bag and I take out the only thing that can complete me. And at that point, the whole world came to a stop. And the waiter was screaming through his eyes. So that's my idea. Do you want to do it?
Savaged, unfiltered.
Protect my community. But now you're stating that if you give me 6 more years, or if you give me 4 more years, then I'll solve the problem. Anyway, you go back to your mansion without guarded.
It'll be too late by then, Sauce.
Yeah.
But
that's what's disgusting about this deep state, is that they come with this analogy, well, give me 4 more years or give me 2 more years and then we'll do something about it. No, it doesn't happen. They've been saying that for 18 terms, Nancy Pelosi.
It doesn't happen. It doesn't happen. But, Sauce, we're running low on time. I want to close it out here. No, you're fine. You're fine. We just have prior commitments, so side projects that we got to do here on the show today. But I wanted to get into this topic here with the deep state, Obama, and just about everything else in between. Guys, I want to make a quick announcement here, Sauce, before we depart. This upcoming 17th, guys, I will be in Melbourne, Florida, attending a very special event by Florida's Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio will be at Melbourne, Florida, at the Civic Center in Melbourne, Florida. Melbourne, Florida, and I'll be attending that event. It's a tremendous event. I highly suggest, guys, if you're in the Melbourne, Florida area or in the Space Coast section of Florida or anywhere near that, I highly suggest you check it out. Seats and the place is filling up literally. I think there's a little bit of space left, but I will be attending that special event rally set by local congressional leaders. I'm sure there's going to be a lot attending. I heard rumored that Ron DeSantis will be at that event. So I'm going to try not only as a podcast host, but as a panelist, as a journalist. I'm going to try to get as many questions as possible, and I'll try to plug them in literally the next day or during that day. I'll try to get a podcast episode in. But a huge announcement, guys. I had to make that on my show. So yeah, Sauce, we're gonna be attending.
Man, that's cool.
Yeah. So.
Alrighty, guys. Hey, if you want to check out my podcast, you're welcome to check out my podcast called Remember God Loves You. And I'm at the finish line. We're coming out with fantastic content. We are going to be back on our regular programming. This week, we're having a very, very special guest. I will be sit-down interview with Miss Monica, who is the founder of the Baby Drop Box for America. She's based out of Indiana. So what that is that she's started a program where you can drop off your baby. If you do not want your baby, you can drop off your baby at the fire station program, and where the fire station now provides you a bunch of resources to make sure that you are okay physically and mentally. So she founded that, and it is fantastic. It's growing lavishly. And so I'll be sitting down with her and taking a tour of her area, the corporate headquarters. So you do not want to miss an episode on that, coming on Thursday afternoon at 10 a.m.
It's good stuff, Sauce. And it benefits, women and young women that, that can't have babies, so that's great.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, all right, guys, remember God loves you. And don't forget to tune in for tomorrow, as we're going to dive in, if Michael's okay by this, or later in the afternoon tomorrow, what really happened in the committee of the election committee, and how Zuckerberg is infected with Wisconsin politics. Join in tomorrow morning or tomorrow on Savage Unfiltered. You guys have a blessed day.
All right. Take it easy, guys.